So over the preceding decades, Terry O'Connor's passion and enthusiasm for outside adventures have led to a diverse set of roles, ranging from ski patroller, rural ambulance EMT, bike guide, expedition manager, emergency physician, high altitude mountaineer, ultra marathoner, National Park Service climbing ranger, ski mountaineering racer, expedition doc, high altitude researcher, firefighter, podcaster, and a few more. He's pretty legit, very legit. Locally, Terry is an emergency physician, county EMS director, medical director for the Heli Ski and Sun Valley Ski Patrol operations. He educates as an assistant clinical professional of emergency medicine for the University of Colorado, Division of Wilderness and Environmental Medicine, and for University of Washington Division of Emergency Medicine. As a professional member of the American Avalanche Association, Terry is also a regular volunteer for the Sawtooth National Forest Avalanche Center and has contributed to the field with abstracts at the International Snow Science Workshop and in articles at the Avalanche Review. He is a regular wilderness medicine educator, serving as course director for the Diploma in Mountain Medicine with the Wilderness Medical Society and as a medical advisor and instructor for the Kumbh Climbing Center in Nepal. Terry is based in Ketchum, Idaho. We get access to him, it's pretty amazing. But as a frequent traveler, has continued to provide care in a wide range of environments, from the summit of Mount Everest down to the coastal rainforests in Borneo. So without further ado, I will introduce you to Terry O'Connor, and he will then introduce you to the rest of the incredible people on our panel for tonight.
Thanks, Amy. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can
right
hear
on.
you
Great. Well, welcome to the fine abode of here inside the hospital to start this Digging Deeper series panel with an esteemed group of my colleagues. I won't belabor an intro too much because this is really a panel and an opportunity for some key members in our community to have the floor and share their experience. But I just wanted to provide some guideposts for everybody that's listening into this presentation today to pay attention to through each of these individual presentations. One, I'd start with expectations. You know, one of the wonderful things about living in Idaho and why I love being here in Idaho is that it is a wilderness state. And that means that when I go and recreate in the backcountry, it's very common that I may not pass any other tracks on my time out. But what's terrifying about that is that if an accident, unfortunately, were to occur, that I may also be miles and miles away from the next human that could help me out. And that does play out in how rescue does happen in our community. And I want you to think about your expectations of how you might get helped in the event that you come under an unfortunate event and have to deal with it, and the time frame that it might take for these individuals to come and help you out and get you to definitive care here in the hospital. The second waypoint I'd like you guys to think about is agency. I know all the people that have signed into this are motivated to not just be hapless victims out there, and we certainly don't want an accident to befall any of you. And we're glad that you exercise your passions in the backcountry and ski and ride. And we want you to continue to do so. That's what brings us together as a community. But I also know that you want to have some control and know what you can do to help us help you when tragedy might cross your path. So pay attention to some of the tips that are going to be shared from our panel that you can take home and think about in your route planning in each particular day. And finally, I just think this is a great opportunity to highlight community. It would be remiss to not at least recognize a background of the bad news of today, but I don't want to contribute to anybody's doom scrolling. But I will say that what I love about living here in Idaho and why I've been here for the decade is I love this community. And over again, each year, whether professional or community members and bystanders, people show up to help one another. And I think you'll find as you hear these presentations from these key players in our community that everybody is going above and beyond with the sometimes limited resources we have to take care of one another and take care of our neighbors here in Blaine County, and our neighboring counties here within the Sawtooth range and outer ranges that we recreate in. So with that, I think what we'll do is we're going to open up with some case studies to kind of exemplify really the playing field of how some of these incidents play out. And again, pay attention to some of these waypoints, expectations of time to rescue, how you can help us help you, and then think about all the community members involved in these cases. So with that, I'm going to hand this off to Seth Martin, colleague, lieutenant and paramedic at Ketchum Fire Department, 20 plus years experience in the Valley, and one of our co-coordinators for the Ketchum Fire Department in our technical rescue teams. And so Seth, I'm going to let you take it away.
All right, Terry, thank you. Thanks for the introduction, and thank you everybody that's on watching this. Hopefully you get something to take home and kind of think about the next time you go out. I'm going to set up my screen here to share this little presentation. All right, so my presentation tonight is to talk to everybody about what really organized rescue is in this valley and our community and Blaine County as a whole, and what you should expect based on a fairly good expectation of a rescue as far as short time frame goes, and then also a rescue as a case study that is going to take some significantly more time. And hopefully, as we walk through this, it's not very long. You guys will develop some questions, and I'll be around after at the end of my presentation and throughout the presentation to answer any for you. So just to jump into this really quick, we get our notifications through the 911 center. Somebody calls 911, whether it's through a personal locator beacon or a telephone or a text message. We get a page through them and the ball starts rolling. And at that point, we institute a series of protocols and start making phone calls and gathering responders and getting all of our ducks in a row so we can come and provide assistance to whomever may need it. So the best case scenario was a avalanche last year, and you know, none of these are good scenarios, but what I'm saying by best case scenario is the time frame from the initial page out that we received to really getting that patient back to the Highway 75 corridor, because at that point they're accessible by car. So we'll just jump right into this, and this is what we hear for a page out when our dispatch center notifies us.
Ketchum Fire, Sun Valley Fire, respond to the end of Baker Creek Road in Galena, cross of Northeast Hot Springs Road and Baker Creek Road for a tech rescue. Again, Ketchum Fire and Sun Valley Fire, respond to the end of Baker Creek Road in Galena, cross of Northeast Hot Springs Road and Baker Creek Road for a tech rescue. We got a fourth party report of a snowmobile that triggered an avalanche.
All right, try that again. So that's usually the amount of information that we have in the first 5 minutes is not much more than that. So we, as the incident starts progressing, we have to find out where you are and what might be wrong and what resources we're going to need to accomplish helping you. So this particular case, there was a snowmobiler caught in an avalanche. It was out in Baker Creek. It was a sunny day. Heliski, which is one of our primary resources, was not flying. Their helicopter was at the gun club. All the guides were in town, kind of close to the helicopter, and Chris was readily available to jump in and fly us up there. So the first call came into dispatch at 3:29 in the afternoon on a Wednesday last January. A lot of things happen. We have a multi-prong approach to anything in the backcountry in the winter. Our first choice is always to go by air. It's obviously a lot quicker, but we can't always rely on that. So we always start plan B, which is ground resources, snowmobiles usually, and have contingencies for plan C and on down the line. We set up an incident command structure, so we have good accountability for all of our rescuers. Communication is a huge part of our operation. If we're out of communications with any of our team members, it's a really big risk to their safety and the overall success of the operation. We request additional agencies, and everybody starts heading out into the field and getting the gear ready. We have a winter rescue plan as far as areas that we've identified up and down the Highway 75 corridor as areas that are large enough to establish a command post and a staging area for all of our resources, because really we bring a lot of manpower to these things. In this particular case, we had a total of 40 people involved. 15 from the Ketchum Fire Department, 7 from Sun Valley Fire. Wood River helped us out with 5, and the Blaine County Sheriff's Office through search and rescue provided 6 members. Sun Valley Heliski had 5, and we tried to bring in a forecaster from the Avalanche Center, and Terry, as the medical director, was heavily involved in this one as well. So the first organized rescuer to reach the patient did so by helicopter, and it took them an hour and 12 minutes after that first 911 call. So like I said, this is one of the best case scenarios of how fast we can get to somebody that's relatively close to town. All the ducks were lined up that day. The extrication of the patient back to the highway took a total of 2 hours and 22 minutes from that 911 call. So really think about where you are in the backcountry and how does that affect your ability to call for help. You know, we all know cell phones around here work relatively reliably up and down Highway 75 until you get to a certain point. But as soon as you step off the beaten path, you're going to have to think about your communications. And then kind of in your game plan, think about how long it might take you to get to cell service. All right. The next case happened a few years ago. This was up in the Salmon headwaters area. And as you can see, it was not a good weather day. It took us almost 45 minutes to drive to Frenchman's Creek, which is where we established the incident command post. And I happened to be driving the ambulance that day and remember going over Galena and had to stop for probably close to a minute because I could no longer see the road. The weather was really, really bad that day. We had a request for a 43-year-old male that had a severely broken lower leg. They had been riding up in the loggy area of the West Fork of Big Smoky Creek, very accomplished snowmobiler in some very big terrain, some of our biggest terrain that we have in Blaine County, and they were way out there. He had pinched his leg between a submerged stump and the runner of his sled, and had a really bad fracture to his lower leg. He ended up splinting it and was able to limp his way back in a ways, but just couldn't go any further. And he ended up being 8 miles in at the headwaters of the Salmon, at about 9,200 feet in elevation. It took 7 agencies and a helicopter, 8 snowmobiles, and 23 responders to perform this rescue. We went in with 8 snowmobiles, but ended up only having approximately 4 reach the patient because of the terrain and the ability of the riders and the rescuers to actually get to the location of the patient kind of diminished as you got into the bigger terrain. The initial dispatch was at 2:10 in the afternoon. The initial paramedic arrived by snow machine at 5:30. So that's 3 hours and 20 minutes later for those of you keeping track. And the patient arrived at the St. Luke's at 6:30 at night. So just shy of 4.5 hours later, we had him out of the backcountry. This was one of those rescues that didn't look like it was going to go very well. And what I mean by that is the initial plan, because of the bad weather, was to shelter in place with our patient overnight. That the initial size up when we got on scene with the patient was that it was a whiteout blizzard and we were going to have to shelter in place with the patient until the weather improved. The next morning, we were hopeful that we could bring a helicopter in, but it looked like it was potentially going to be a very long ground rescue. Fortunately, a donut hole in the clouds opened up and Chris was able to fly the helicopter in and land and picked us up and flew us back to the hospital directly. So things kind of worked out in this case, but this can show you what to realistically expect if you're in the deep backcountry of Blaine County. And just kind of wrapping up, those are some photos of the end of that rescue. And we really want you guys to go out and enjoy our community and our mountains. I grew up here and I can't imagine living here without enjoying that. But we want you to know the hazards. We want you to be prepared. We want you to have a plan, because our first responders risk their lives to come and get you. And we don't want to do that if it's not necessary. So hopefully everybody stays safe. And if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer some, hopefully.
Awesome. Thanks, Seth. Appreciate the overview. A couple cases here. So if you have any questions after each speaker, feel free to submit them to the Q&A. But Seth, I will open with one question to you while we're waiting to see if we have any other questions, and then move on to our next speaker. But what would you say, what percentage of individuals you've responded to over the year seem adequately prepared to potentially benight themselves, spend the night out?
None.
Fair enough.
I don't think I've examined the contents of anybody's packs, but I would venture to guess maybe 1 to 2 people over 15 years has actually been able to or been prepared to sustain themselves overnight successfully. You're never going to be comfortable, but the goal is to just be alive in the morning, right?
Right, exactly. Well, cool, thanks. So take homes for me on that to everybody is, again, I mean, best case scenario, getting out to potentially a warm car and an ambulance about 2 hours and 22 minutes. That's certainly one of the fastest ones I can remember here in my time. If you have any other questions later on as well for Seth, we can field them after some of the other presenters, because I think they may spur some other questions later on. But I think on this topic and expectations, I wanted to move on to our next presenter, Scooter Gardner, another key ally and contributor to the Avalanche Center in his role as the Director of Snow Safety up on at Sun Valley Resort on Baldy. And really wanted to give Scooter an opportunity to educate you on really some of the complexities of incidents really right on the shoulders of the resort. And again, pay attention a little bit to what maybe some of your expectations were and what really does happen out there. So Scooter, you got the floor, man.
Hey, thanks, Terry. Seth, Terry, I think we could do a whole episode just on your resume. Thanks for this opportunity. It's an honor and a privilege just to be involved in this conversation with some of the people that I really look up to in the rescue community. So just wanted to talk to you guys this evening about what's involved with the backside rescue off of Bald Mountain. All right, I can't see you guys, but if you can, I hope you can hear me here.
All good, Scooter.
Okay, thanks. Sorry. This is an overview of Baldy, our north side, which is lift access from Warm Springs. And threw this up there. You know, a lot of people think this is a bubble of safety. You ride up the lift, you got restaurants nearby, people around, and you know, what could possibly go wrong? And there's just a rope line separating, you know, a guest from what could conceivably be, you know, fields of powder. It's unpatrolled and uncontrolled. It's consequential terrain. As you can see up and down this ridge line here, this is our boundary line. Just outside the boundary line is some very steep starting zones of some great pitched terrain that is good for skiing, although fires in 2007 and 2011 burned through this area, and it is now, there's just a lot of dead downfall out there, and trees tipping over almost every windstorm. There are a lot of hidden hazards, both above the snow, but under the snow, and you can't control your traffic out there. There's traffic above you, other groups of skiers when it's crowded out there, and also below you. And if you were an avid backcountry skier, this would not be the first place that you would choose to recreate. It has some true risk out there. So just wanted to tell you that our rescues are not automatic. We need permission from Sun Valley Company to go out into out of bounds terrain. And we need permission from the Blaine County Sheriff because we're operating under their search and rescue umbrella when we go on a rescue out of bounds. And there's no immediate response because it depends on what we have going on the other side of the boundary ropes. Is we're ultimately responsible for 11 lifts and however many skiers we have skiing that day. When you do get over into the backside, like Seth and Terry mentioned, it's very limited communication. There's areas where you have just one bar of cell phone service. There are other areas back there where you don't have any cell service at all. And as you can see in the picture, just a ton of burnt trees. It makes skiing back there on a powder day surreal, but there's no discernible landmarks out there. It's really tough to get an idea of what one location someone's talking about. And because of all this, there's just an extended extraction time. So just an overview of the backside of Warm Springs. Our ski lift area is just to Looker's left of the blue line. And this area underneath the blue line is all out of bounds terrain, but that blue line is our bike path. And this is what makes this terrain that much more appealing because it's upper elevation, north facing terrain that typically will hold snow most of the year. And you can get back quickly along the bike path straight into inbounds terrain. So there's a case study in 2015 that kind of highlights all the things that make rescuing out there a challenge. This was the Avalanche Center's advisory for the day. And here it is, Wood River Valley. Reading it to you. In terrain sheltered from wind, yesterday's 1.5 to 2 feet of new snow is overloading existing weak layers. Human-triggered avalanches are likely, and the danger is considerable and high. And the question I posed to everyone is, would you go? I mean, but because Baldy is often perceived as this bubble of safety, I think it dumbs down people's logic and decision making and risk assessment. So on this 2015 rescue, communications were they were poor at best. We know that you don't get very good GPS coordinates from 911, but 911 calls do send a GPS coordinate to the dispatcher. They were able to report back to us the lack of cell phone towers back there, and their ability to triangulate your location doesn't exist. So the GPS coordinates we get from Blaine County Dispatch in this area are not always accurate. And then on top of that, we had a witness that said, I knew exactly where this happened. I will take you right there. And we sent our first Hasty team pair, and the witness took them down the completely wrong ridge. They caused an avalanche right in this area here. All were safe. They continued down on the safe ridge, realizing that they weren't going to find them, and then they were out of the picture for a while. What had happened is some skiers were skiing down this bowl here. Skier 2 was just off to the side of the slide. Skier 1 was unfortunately in the slide and ended up down in here, this red dot. Skier 2 was able to get down below him, and he was partially buried but had numerous injuries. So difficult to locate. Locations are difficult. He said, the witness said, oh yeah, they're in heaven. We call this particular chute heaven. A lot of people refer to this entire area as heaven. So there are a lot of interpretations that can slow down a rescue. And it's difficult and prolonged. Just looking down the steep terrain here, this was the response call for that day. The first call came in of a partially buried avalanche skier on the backside of Warm Springs at 11:52 a.m. He was partially buried, but had multiple fractures and internal injuries. It was difficult to locate. It required 10 patrollers. We typically staff 30 up there, including our supervisors and directors. So taking 10 people out of that staff is certainly a strain. And it was not easy going. The delivery time from the time we got the call to the ambulance was 2 hours and 20 minutes. You can just see from the terrain here, there are no, I mean, it's steep like this almost everywhere back there, and there are no landing zones for helicopters. So Seth's plan A with air support just doesn't exist for these kind of rescues. So what can you do? Just be smart skiers. Check the avalanche advisory. Treat this area as not just be on the ropes, powder off a resort, but as a backcountry snowpack. You're going to ski with a partner. You're going to be prepared to self-rescue, have all the rescue equipment you need. Carry a cell phone. It's our best line of communication, other than maybe someone skiing out if you didn't have cell phone connection to sound the alarms. But dialing 911 is really important. Like I said, we get a GPS coordinate, or at least a general GPS coordinate from Blaine County Dispatch. But just wanted to thank you again for this opportunity, and happy to take any questions if anyone has any.
Great, thanks, Scooter. I'll just add one other comment. Well, one, thanks again to all the personnel on Baldy Patrol that were involved in that. I remember I was there that day and on that incident, and I'll add that it was a little hair-raising because we identified a potential time-sensitive emergency with that patient. So you can imagine how that weighs on the conscience of everybody responding to that as we're trying to haul the victim out and around there. There was one question that came in, I think it'll be more pertinent for me to field with some of our other speakers coming up. So Jeremy, thanks for that question. But if anybody else has any other questions for Scooter, happy to take them now. Otherwise, I will probably move on to our next panelist. Scooter, you may be off the hot seat for right now. Well, cool. Well, my take home. Yeah, sure.
I think somebody just raised their hand.
Oh, okay. I can't see that on my end. So is there a chat in or a question submitted? I just see Jeremy Black's.
Yeah. Let's see, Steve raised his hand. I can unmute you. Steve, you can unmute yourself and ask the question. And then Terry, I'll let you take it away from there. Oh, Steve, if you do have a question, you can unmute yourself and ask live, but it looks like he just typed into the chat about carrying an inReach.
Yes, if that's directed towards me, or at least any backcountry enthusiasts back there, I mean, I certainly encourage it if you have one. It's just one more line of insurance.
Yeah, and Steve, we're going to address that as well in another topic coming up here around the corner coming up next. But my take comes from scooters, again, is just the surprise and the difficulty in locating use, particularly in the burn and the side country there in Baldy. And then interesting matchup that the time of extrication of that patient was effectively the same as a best case scenario in the backcountry. So just put that in the memory bank as well in regards to your expectations out there. So next, maybe to try to answer the question of really what other resources that can be brought to bear. We talked about effectively, you've seen how we've grassrooted and pulled up some resources, but what else can we do? And does anything else happen at dispatch to call together some of the resources and to respond? And I'd like to move on to now to Jamie Shaw, another long-term resident and 20 years of experience with Blaine County Search and Rescue with the Sheriff's Department, and our freshly anointed Chief of Police here at Ketchum Fire Department. And Jamie, wanted you to address a little bit about, some people might have some other questions about other resources that the county might be able to call up or drum up to help with some of these incidents, and how realistic is that, and really what sort of time frame are we dealing with when you're thinking about other resources to help out individuals in the backcountry?
Thank you for the introduction, Terry. When a call comes in, it comes in a variety of ways. The Blaine County Dispatch, cell phone, landline, and referring to Steve's question about, spot, inReach, those types of devices. We do get those, sometimes false alarms, and we find they're actually really accurate. That inReach, where you can have the real-time text, provides a lot of information, but even the old-fashioned spots, if it's a 911 emergency, gives us a good location to start. Most of these rescues, when the call does come in, we an on-duty patrol deputy will get dispatched to the scene usually first, and once they're start asking questions of witnesses, partners, anyone that can offer any pertinent information. Just start collecting all of the information that we can, and then relay it to everyone else, so incident command can start spooling up what's necessary for this rescue. That's generally going to be a long-term rescue. To identify any resources, identify the incident command posts. That's generally our first priority in patrol. Even like a scooter reference with the side country rescues, it's, even though you can see town from it, but there's no way a patrol officer is going to get there. So we immediately contact Sun Valley Ski Patrol and provide with our MOU for them to spool up a rescue and just get the ball rolling. There's a lot of expectations, even as it was stated earlier, about what people expect, and spooling up a search and a rescue takes a lot of time. Like Seth's first presentation, that was a fast one, and even then, I mean, that's it's not an instant search. We don't have like a helicopter on standby unless Chris happens to be around or right there, sitting with it idling, ready to go. Military, we can have the ability to call in the National Guard, Air National Guard out of Boise, but the first phone call actually goes to Florida to draw a national search and rescue case number, and then they will contact Gowan Field, and then the search for a crew starts. So that's not a fast search or fast response time whatsoever. As we found in the Luke Richardson search years ago, or not that long ago, we identified a air asset out of Montana, that Two Bear Air. They're very responsive. And once you give them what the mission is, where the area, they'll tell you yes or no relatively fast, and we'll have a crew en route. But as we ran into with this big search we had this late fall with the missing hiker out Prairie Creek, their bird was down for maintenance and was unavailable. So we just, there's just not an instant air response. You know, Seth mentioned that's our first choice for a rescue, but it's not always going to be there. Search and rescue teams, all of you know, most of you know, you probably know members on the search and rescue team. We're primarily a volunteer organization. So again, it's, you know, a call goes out and people got to leave work, dinner, whatever, get dressed for the mission, collect all their gear and go out. So that takes time. We do have snowmobile teams. And to get to Jeremy's question, and I know Jeremy, you know, we got some really skilled riders in search and rescue, and they can get about anywhere. But our problem is with the search and rescue is, we can get there, we can get to the scene. But if it's a big medical, we got to have a paramedic. So that is something that all the departments are working on, being able to get, you know, medical care by snowmobile in. And I think we are getting there. But as you know, just the expectations is the big thing. Just how do we, you know, it's not a fast turnaround, but when we get a patrol deputy on scene, you'll find them, they're just going to be matter of fact, trying to collect all the information they can really quick. So, they don't have time to start telling everybody the story of what's happening. That just shows up. But it's about it for just what I have. If anyone has any questions.
Great, thanks, Jamie. And I think that was a good kind of take-home point too. If you do see an officer on scene and you're involved, just know that their role is going to be trying to size up some of the events to actually help us determine what resources we do need, and that is very helpful and useful to look to them if you need to share some information. And then thanks for taking that question from Jeremy Black. I'm glad you saw that, Jamie. I was going to tee that up your way. I know there's a lot of skilled riders with the sheriff's office, and I'll just remind you back to one of those last slides with Seth about how many different agencies are actually involved in these responses. You're not just getting the fire department responding, you are getting search and rescue personnel from the sheriff's office who do have different skill sets, including excellent riding skills. And the fire departments also do train as well, particularly Sun Valley Fire Department, in doing some skill sessions with the sleds to try to be more facile in the backcountry environment. So great question. And we are kind of jacks of all trades here. So we try to train up for as many different scenarios as we can and do the best we can with the resources we have. So, but great, thanks, Jamie. And so from there, we kind of identified, I think, one of the recurrent themes in these cases that we've talked about and presented here, and one of the classic challenges is really just getting the word out and getting the word out accurately so that we know exactly where you are. And so to kind of transition a little bit to the waypoint of letting you know how to better help us, we next have Captain and Paramedic Miles Canfield from Ketchum Fire Department, who also is a co-coordinator with the Ketchum Fire Department Tech Rescue Team with Seth Martin. And he's going to review really how to get the word out effectively, how it's been done historically, and some other tools you can consider using. Miles.
Hey, thanks, Terry. Just to follow up on a couple of themes. One is that time is precious, and especially daylight. It's a resource that is not to be squandered when there's a potential for a rescue. We ask that if you think you might need us, notify us. If it's a situation where you're like, well, we might be able to make it out, someone just dislocated their shoulder, go ahead and initiate rescue, because that gives us the gift of time, the ability to mission plan, to check weather, to notify resources. And we are really happy when we show up and find you that you've been able to extricate yourself and you're back at the car. we're more than happy to call off a rescue. So please let us know early if you think you might need rescue. All rescues, as mentioned before, need to come through our 911 center, and several ways to get a hold of them that I'll throw out here. It's been mentioned, the personal locator beacon, inReach spot type devices, really helpful. They have the best coverage out there. Really encourage people to activate the SOS feature on it. If you were near a phone and would call 911, hit the SOS button. Don't text a friend in town to have them call. Second thing is back to cell phones. We know there's not great coverage out there, but Blaine County does have text to 911. So if you just in the to box hit 911 and then send your message, that requires a lot less signal, perhaps as little as 1 bar. Something that is new, it's put out by the Backcountry Zero project, which is through Teton Search and Rescue over in Jackson Hole, is an app. It's available. This is my slide. There we go. It's backcountrysos.com. And if you go check that out, it's got the links to both Apple and Android devices. What that app does is it will make the text to 911 call for you. But the major advantage is that it takes your GPS coordinates from your phone and automatically sends that as part of that data package. And Blaine County Communication Center is set up to monitor that. And they will, they'll get your GPS coordinates from your phone with a map location. That solves some of the problem that Scooter was talking about, where if you're just calling directly from the backside of Baldy and you only hit one tower, you get an inaccurate location. Again, backcountrysos.com. And it's just gone live within the last couple of days for Blaine County. Another thought here is just trying to connect the backcountry user community. They've been successful with this in Telluride. Again, this is not direct 911 communication, but there's a lot of people out there that use family radios or BCA radios, BCA links. And what we're promoting is to use channel 9, subchannel 11 as a reaching out, a hailing frequency to other backcountry users that might be able to assist you. So if you have either a family service radio or a BCA link, if you are a good human, we're asking you to monitor that channel 911. And if you hear something, pass the word on, and maybe through the word of mouth, the need for help can get out. Or if you're nearby, maybe you can go help someone and solve their problem for them. Galena Lodge has graciously said that they'd be willing to keep a family radio on in their shop, tuned to that frequency. And if they hear something, they'll make a phone call. But again, that's not a direct to 911 source. That's just kind of crowdsourcing within the backcountry community. Another option out there is the Wood River Amateur Radio Club. My slide again here. If you go to them at wrarc.org, they'll have more information on how you can become a ham radio operator. It's an online learning program and test that you take. And they have repeaters that are located on Galena Summit and Baldy and have coverage, therefore, and fairly decent coverage from Stanley all the way down to Twin Falls. And again, a way to crowdsource getting a message out. And then the last one, which is tried and true, is sending someone out to the road. And I would suggest that if you do that, write on a piece of paper your location. Whenever you say location, keep it simple. Use the main drainage and then a sub drainage to that. An example would be that I'm out Baker Creek, and avoid private names of ski runs. We're in the Powder Palace. That can just be confusing. So, out Brody Gulch, out Baker Creek, keeps it nice and simple. And then just one last final thought for me is, I've find that, winter rescues from a rescuer point of view, they're really very challenging, especially compared to summer ones. They test you physically. They require more skill with skiing and snowmobiling ability, and the environment is working against you. You've got cold, short days, avalanche danger. And as time has gone by, where I've risen in roles from being the rescuer to the person who's responsible for running the incidents, where I'm asking others to put themselves in harm's way, I've come to view that the best rescue is the one that you never have to respond to. And this is why I'm so appreciative of the preventive education that the Friends and the Sawtooth Avalanche Center have done over the years. The motto of the Air Force Pararescue comes to my mind, which is these things we do that others may live. And I think that sums up the core mission of the Friends in the Sawtooth Avalanche Center. So from a rescuer point of view, I am very grateful for the work that they do. And additionally out there, if there's any listeners who want to become involved in rescue, reach out and join your local fire department, Blaine County Search and Rescue, Galena Backcountry Ski Patrol, or donate a helicopter to us. And with that, I'll pass it back to Terry.
I'd love to hear about the helicopter. I love those high-tech slides too. I don't know how long it took you to put that together. I told you not to work too hard on this presentation. So, and I don't see any other questions right now, but I guess I can ask you just a real quick question, Miles. Do you, because so much can happen if you are involved in these incidents and you kind of lose track of important details. Have there been instances where people come to the road or getting word out and they actually really have no idea where they are? Has that happened?
Oh, for sure. And it's very confusing because we live in an area that have multiple goat creeks. Names are commonly reused. And I think a great skill for people is to be able to get your location off your phone. That's again why I love that Backcountry SOS app, because before you've even sent the message, it pops up your location for you to be able to take a screenshot. And it gets back to real simple things too, of letting your family members or friends know where you're going. Leave a note in your car where you intend to ski. So for sure, it's a lot of times we don't put thought into our path and what drainages it takes it through, but being able to describe that is a big help.
And let's see, we have one other question that came in from Tim. So for those of us listeners who are members of Air St. Luke's, are there any other additional steps we can take during a potential rescue? Many thanks to the amazing panel. Thanks, Tim. So Miles, do you want to field that, or I can also fill in some details too?
Sure. I think just living in our location, no matter what you do, whether you recreate or not, everybody should be part of a air ambulance program, insurance program. It's just so many of our patients, as you can speak to better than I, Terry, end up being transferred out of here to specialty centers. But that just deals with the transfer part. I don't think that is anything special to the actual rescue situation. I think it will help you tremendously after the fact when you go to the post office and receive your bill.
Yeah, so a couple of things I'll just highlight real quick on the Air St. Luke's membership. So it's not proprietary just to Air St. Luke's. If they don't have an aircraft available, they will utilize next closest available aircraft to get to you. It's always going to be the pilot's discretion and also the crew's discretion on whether they feel safe with the mission. But Air St. Luke's has offered to me many times that if our next speaker is not available, that they will even just do a flyover if they don't anticipate that they can actually get you out of that zone because they are worried about the risks of the landing zone, they will size up as best they can from the air the scene. So that's another value added with that particular group. And they've been particularly useful for us in our northern zones in the Sawtooths in circumstances like that, both in the winter and the summertime. Doug Gross just asked again the name of the app. So apparently your visual wasn't good enough, Miles. I'm sorry to say. I thought it was awesome, but it's Backcountry SOS. If you Google that, you should find it. It's you'll see it's affiliated with Teton County SAR, and you'll see Blaine County listed as an operational zone for that app. Great. So Amy, if you got your ears on, let's tee up our next speaker. So speaking of helicopters, everybody loves seeing helicopters. So it can certainly be exciting to be around a helicopter, but also it can be disorienting if a helicopter is to land next to you or take off next to you. But not everybody is tuned in on how to be found or seen by a helicopter as well. So you've heard Chris's name mentioned off and on through many of the presenters here. And Chris Templeton has certainly been a key asset in our community for a long time, being a Sun Valley Heli Ski pilot, but also has a deep experience with organized rescue with the Park Service as well, operating on technical rescues and short hauls within the Park Service. And we asked Chris to join us here today to talk a little bit about the ins and outs, how to help him find you and locate you and what to expect if he does answer the call to come find you. Chris.
Yeah, thanks, Terry. Just getting the word out is important, but then once the word is out, obviously being found is critical, and everyone sort of thinks, well, I'm wearing a bright red jacket, how could they miss me? And you're just a little speck out in the huge white mountains, potentially in the timber. So not just the bright clothing, but have bright colored tarp, tent fly, whatever you can use, and add movement, because clearly the human eye picks up movement a whole lot better than just a solid color that's stationary. And throw in flat light, darkness, anything working against the helicopter from finding somebody on the ground. So like when I fly around in the mountains, in my personal survival pack, I carry a strobe, a signal mirror, a smoke grenade, and a rolled up 20-foot by 1-foot section of International Orange panel. Anything that is going to present a lot of contrast with the background, give a distinct visual that might catch somebody's eye as the aircraft is going by. And keep in mind that, the more detail that is given on that initial call up about an accident, avalanche, whatever it is, the geographic location is going to narrow down that focus considerably. And, as both Seth and Miles have mentioned, in the middle of winter in Idaho in the mountains, we don't have a whole lot of daylight left from the time the call comes in to getting the helicopter in the air. So the less time the helicopter spends trying to locate the person on the ground, maybe it's going to be a faster, better resolution for the patient on the ground. Don't worry about setting up an LZ, identifying an LZ, you know, focus on being seen from the air, even if it's lighting a signal fire. The air crew is going to be the ones that sort of pick out a landing zone that they feel comfortable with, because there's an awful lot of factors going in, you know, potentially even the stability of the terrain around the patient. I mean, the last thing we want to do is create an avalanche that comes down and hits the patient when the helicopter lands. So you might see the helicopter come orbit over you, and then it seems like it just disappears. You don't hear it anymore. And it's like, well, did they see us? What's going on? Odds are if they came and did an orbit around you, or even a couple of orbits, they saw you. The people on board the helicopter are now having a conversation on where they feel comfortable landing. And it might be that they end up landing on a ridgeline well above the accident scene, and then we'll ski down with all the gear to the patient. And the helicopter shut down, so you don't even hear it anymore. But like I said, it's completely up to the crew whether they're comfortable landing up on the ridgeline closer to the patient. If there is a spot that they feel comfortable landing very close to the patient, you know, I can remember doing at least one rescue in the Sawtooths where I think the helicopter ended up about 3 feet from the back end of the snowmobile that the rider was on, and they had lit a fire. So of course the rotor wash is blowing that around, which then, you know, presents another issue. If the helicopter is going to come in and land near you, please make sure that you have everything tidied up. You know, if you're sitting there waving a tarp or a tent fly to attract the attention of the helicopter, don't just drop it on the ground. Because if the helicopter comes in and lands near you, the rotor wash kicked up is potentially going to take that tarp and put it right into the rotor system of the helicopter. And now not only do we have an injured patient, but we have a broken helicopter that crashed right next to the injured patient. So, you know, keep everything under control. Hopefully it's not one of those things where the helicopter just shows up, does maybe a half orbit around you and shoots the approach so fast you don't even have time to react. But, you know, sort of think about as much wind as the helicopter is going to produce, keep it clean, and, you know, let the helicopter crew do all the work. You know, if they want help, they will ask for it. Don't approach the helicopter without the assistance of somebody on that helicopter. There's an awful lot of moving parts that people tend to forget about, like the tail rotor, the main rotor. So, you know, somebody will get out of the helicopter, they will come to you, and then bring you into the helicopter. So, you know, everything is just nice and safe, which is definitely what we're hoping for, that everyone comes home at the end of the day nice and safe. And if you have any questions, feel free to ask. And Terry, I'll give it back to you.
Thanks, Chris. One question from Jamie Lieberman, and you can start with this, and I fill in the pieces. But he's asking if anyone around here does any short haul or long haul, and these are, for those who aren't aware, these are different types of rescue techniques with a helicopter for extraction.
Yeah, there are a couple of programs. In fact, the National Guard out of Gowan in Boise has a hoist on their helicopters. Teton County SAR during the winter, they have a contract helicopter which does short haul. And then in the summer months, they do have the 2 Forest Service short haul helicopters out of the Elevase at Jackson Hole. And I know they've come over in the past, and like the Thompson Peak Rescue and the Sawtooth. It was the Teton National Park crew that did the short haul. And then obviously mentioned Two Bear Air also has a hoist, so they can do rescues as well.
Yeah, that's great. And Jamie, if you'd like to buy us a helicopter, then we can work on a short haul program here as well.
Yeah, call
that'd
me.
be
I'll
awesome.
fly.
Chris and I are on that. As soon as someone wants to buy the helicopter, we're ready. But yeah, that's a great layout of the playing field on resources, Chris. Thanks. I'll add that each of those resources have different skills when it comes to actually the medical, what sort of medical care those assets can provide. Some are equipped with, say, park medics. Some are equipped with paramedics or EMTs in the military. Two Bear Air does not provide any medical care. So it's variable, it's across the board. And these are kind of the other assets that we brainstorm and think about and utilize our colleagues at the Sheriff's Office, like Jamie was mentioning before, to think about other resources if Chris and Sun Valley Heli Ski are not available. So thanks for the question. So I just want to move and finish up. Thanks, Chris, again for your 2 cents there. Chris did mention that there are circumstances, and I certainly remember many times where Chris has flown to the very wee ends of daylight. And there may be times where we don't have any daylight left and we can't get to you by a helicopter. And Chris also mentioned being noticed by lighting a signal fire. And these are the sorts of things that I think are very useful. We don't always think about having access to in our pack or to be able to deploy should we be benighted, unfortunately, in a circumstance like this. So I want to finish up with Matt Hanson, who's with Sun Valley Fire Department and has been for, I think, yes, seven years now. Also been on Backcountry Ski Patrol for about a decade. Just finished up paramedic school. Congrats, Matt. But Matt was just going to cover what are some items that you ought to think about maybe having on hand, especially if you might be tapping a little bit deeper into the backcountry and not just skiing the cross on a particular day. So Matt, I'm gonna let you take it from here, man.
Thanks, Dr. Terry, and thanks for the panel for having me aboard. And yeah, thanks to the Sawtooth Avalanche Center for all the hard work this year, and Sun Valley Heli Ski, Chris, for helping us out on some of the difficult rescues, make our job a lot easier. And thanks for everybody else for being really safe out in the backcountry this year. Historically, you know, we've been pretty safe community, and I've gotten lucky with some heli rescues, and yeah, overall it's been a generally responsible community out in the backcountry so far. So keep up the good work, everybody, and keep watching the report. So yeah, kind of building off the expectations on, you know, Seth and Scooter had mentioned some case studies, 2 to 4 hour, 2 to 5 hour rescues. If that, you know, that's a pretty good time frame, what to expect. But, you know, there might be some weather, it could be later in the day. We're not going to use the helicopter. There might be a danger to rescuers where avalanche conditions are just too high and we can't get to you. So thinking about sheltering in place, once you go over a ridge and down into the next ravine, self-extrication becomes really difficult. So just having some items to shelter in a little bit extra space in your pack. You know, one is just a snow saw that also can cut some wood, help build a fire, cut down some pine boughs, just getting off the snow. So you're insulating yourself from the snow, using a pad, just a little pad, super thin. I fit this right over my shovel in my pack. It doesn't take up any extra space and it's super light, but just getting off the snow there. And then a bivy sack, you know, this really rarely ever leaves my bag. You can use this to spread out and make a shelter with that. Get into that in just a sec. And then a way to make a fire, so a lighter, some fire starter materials, cotton balls with some Vaseline. Just getting online and watching some videos on how to make a fire in snowy and windy conditions, and then getting out there and practicing those techniques. Maybe on a high avalanche day when you can't go out and go skiing, go practice some of these skills, building shelters. So I think we have a little slide on one shelter. Digging into a snowdrift, or digging a trench and throwing a tarp over that, laying your skis down and lying the tarp over that, getting into a stand of trees, piling up snow, and then digging right into that pile and excavating all that snow out and making a little snow cave. One thing to remember is door below the floor, so that you have a place for cold air to sink and you're not sitting in that cold air, but your own body temperature is kind of warming that space, and that cold air has a place to get out. So practicing those skills is before it happens, it can be really hard to build a fire in really windy and snowy conditions. And it's pretty fun to do. So go try sleeping out in a snow one night with your warm sleeping bag. But remember, you're not going to have that sleeping bag out in the field, and maybe the rescuers will get to you 8 hours into the night, because we do plan on carrying our own equipment that has equipment to the evening, but we're not going to carry an extra sleeping bag for you. So it's up to you to be able to stay warm and survive and hopefully get you out the next day. But that's about all I have. Thanks a lot, you guys, for joining us. Good group of people.
Great, thanks, Matt. Hey, can you think of a moment where you dug into your pack when you needed something and were just really upset that it wasn't there? I guess in my particular circumstance, I think about repair kits. We've had some nearly busted bindings, and not having a screw or something to fix my binding was a bit anxiety provoking. But you think of a personal experience of something that you wish you had at the moment, but you didn't, and you always bring now?
Yeah, for sure. And the binding parts has always gotten me. And my pack's just been getting bigger and bigger over the years. And then I try to reduce it more. And then I'm even on a day off, I'm still carrying probably way too much. But sometimes I'd rather just have it than not. It was the other weekend. I forgot my butt. I was like snowmobiling and I took out a bunch of stuff from my pack. We were just playing in the flats and down for some lunch. I'm like, I really wish I had my pad right now. I ended up just sitting on the backpack. So another good way to get yourself off the snow is just sitting on your pack or on your sled, but getting creative sometimes. So yeah.
Right on. Well, thanks, Matt. And thanks for everybody for tuning in. And thanks again to our panel. I guess I'll finish again with the one point about community. I wanted to make sure everybody understood and really had a sense of the skill and experience that is in this community, and how much these individuals are going above and beyond really their job descriptions to try to help you guys out. So there is one last question about Blaine County Rescue, but also that the Sawtooth Avalanche Center is also in Camas and Custer counties, and how are these areas prepared for winter backcountry SAR minus an easy heli response? So every county does have their own team. I would say that the reality about Idaho, and as remote as we are, is that you certainly have seen the degree of collaboration amongst agencies that we rely on just within this county. And please know that extends outside of county. I affiliate as well as a medical director for Southern Custer County and the Sawtooth. And we have what are called kind of mutual aid arrangements, where we will, when we can, provide and share resources with neighboring counties that don't have the same personnel or resources that we have, and effectively try to set up our same incident command system to try to identify resources that we can bring to bear, both within the county, but within neighboring counties, and honestly calling in resources from out of county. So Chris Templeton brought up that perfect example of actually calling in the Jenny Lake Rangers from the Tetons for a technical rescue in the Sawtooth. So we do try to help out our neighbors here in Idaho as best we can. So the resources that we have available in Blaine County, if needed, we do our best to share with our neighboring counties and pretty much our recreation zone here under kind of the aegis and the forecast zone of the Sawtooth Avalanche Center. So with that, I am going to wrap it up as a courtesy to everybody in their time, but I think I'm going to hand this back to Amy for some closing comments. Thanks.